es que al final está muy divertido, muy enfocado, pero aquí tengo en pausa ahorita que estaba viendo.
So you want this world? Well, I'm not saying I don't know. There's a sort of a philosophical debate. Is the concept of heaven, as it is normally described, actually what you want? I mean, do you want to be in a future world where you know, in the AI sense, that AI can do everything better than you by far? That's so, because, you know, you sort of like have like math search for meaning, but good word. And do you, if like I said, if AI can do everything better than you, do we live a life of hedonism? I don't know. It's hard to say. But that is where things are headed in a positive scenario is that there would be no scarcity of goods and services. The robots and computers can make as much of whatever you want with really no limitation. Any scarcity you have would be artificial, meaning like if you define that a particular artwork done by a human is unique and special, then it's artificial scarcity, but there will be no actual scarcity unless you define it arbitrarily, just define something to be scarce. So I think for a lot of people that is a good future. I might be personally a bit frustrated because I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do now?
You'll think of something. You'll think of something.
I think that this is a very interesting set of challenges. What would we do if people have no jobs? But I think it's important to remember that we're not automatically going to end up in this situation in the way you're thinking about it now. We could also, I think, very likely end up in a situation where people have no jobs because there are no people anymore. Where we could literally go extinct. You know, we had a statement that came out in May, right, that Sam Altman and you both signed, right, saying, and Ursula von der Leyen came out with it a couple of days ago saying we have to take seriously human extinction. And if this sounds like very crazy science fiction, you know, we were joking like just a few years ago, all your success sounded like science fiction too. And you said that we don't have a lot of time. These are things that could happen relatively soon, and there's it's very important to me, because I want the good future, to think about how we steer away from those. One way in which we could end up in this kind of bad future is pretty obvious. Now, the idea that we can lose control to something more intelligent is not new at all. Alan Turing himself said this in the 50s, that that's kind of a natural thing to expect. That's what always happened on our planet before. When a new smarter species came in, it took control over the older ones, and then, you know, bye-bye Neanderthals, bye-bye mammoths, whatever. More concretely, I think, even though Hollywood is full of scenarios where someone somehow loses control of AI and it takes over, there are more sneaky ways in which we could end up in this sort of bad state, even more willingly. So, for example, right now, I'm a big fan of the free market too, you know, but it's the fact that if people are competing against other people, they will often cede control voluntarily to machines to get an edge on the other guys. So companies who replace workers with machines outcompete companies who don't. Armies who cede control to machines outcompete armies who don't. Once we have really powerful AI that's better at running companies and countries than humans, you know, then countries that replace their prime ministers by AI might outcompete others. And then we end up in this future where all these things are happening, but it's not our future anymore. And we're like, wait a minute, where did we go wrong here?
But
it was supposed to be for us.
But that's the point, you know. Forgive me for borrowing a page from your book, literally a page from your book. I'm confessing, I'm a speciesist. Okay?
Or not.
Okay, so I'm for the human species. Okay, we can talk about other evolutions and machine-launched intelligence and so on. But I'm for, in the Jewish tradition, there's a saying, how do you translate this? The impoverished of your own city, of your own town, perceive the impoverished of other towns. So the human species, as far as I'm concerned, is something that I'm vitally interested in maintaining. I'll tell you that the problem we have is not really extinction, which I hope maybe you can extemporate, just elaborate on. But here's something else. Even if we don't go extinct, how do we define ourselves? You talked about that, Greg, okay? So we defined ourselves. We had this myth in the Bible. We had heaven, paradise. You can just pick off the trees, pick off the fruit from the trees. You'd have to do nothing. And then the serpent comes and messes things up. And then we're condemned to toil for our labors. Life is a struggle. It's defined as a struggle. It's defined all the time as a struggle where you're competing with the forces of nature or with other human beings or to constantly better your position. This is how the human race has defined itself. And our self-definition is based on that, both as individuals, as nations, as humanity as a whole. Now, that could be challenged, and it is challenged. So it's both our self-definition throughout human history and evolution that is being challenged, and also the question of our continued existence, which, you can please explain why you think we're in danger of extinction.
Well, I was going to say, I think this whole arc, in my mind, is all about paradigm shift, right? And I think that even the question of what would that heaven post-AGI positive future look like, I think even that is hard for us to imagine what the true upside could be. Because it's not just material abundance. It's not just we all get nice cars or something. Hopefully all Teslas. But also that everyone gets a great education, right? Everyone has that story of that one teacher that they had who paid attention to them and inspired them on a specific subject. Imagine if you had that teacher for anything you wanted constantly, and just how much better people would you be, how much better would you relate to others. Like, that is just one example of the kinds of upside that are possible. And I think the question of, well, what does it mean to be a human? Back to how do you predict what's going to come next? Actually, the thinker who I think had the best foresight about how the AI revolution is going to play out is actually Ray Kurzweil. I agree. Yeah, and his book Singularity is Near gets like a lot of shit. I think that people, kind of assume it's going to be almost like just sort of religious text, but instead it's a very dry analytical text. And he looks at the context and said, this is the fundamental unlock for intelligence. Everyone thought that was crazy, and now it's basically true. It's basically common wisdom. And part of what he says is, look what's going to happen in the 2030s. First of all, he says AGI 2029. Yeah, I'm because of it. It's just your horse exactly right. It's spooky. 2030 is when the merge happens. So we've got Neuralink coming, and maybe other systems like that. What does it mean once you actually are kind of merging with an intelligence?
Well, Neuralink is especially more so than AI because whenever you put a device in a human, you have to try to train it. So I think. So it's not clear to me that the Neuralink will be ready before AGI. I think AGI is probably going to happen first. But you have to sort of AGI or Singularity. As soon as digital superintelligence is full focus, that is Singularity like black hole, because just like the black hole, you can't predict what happens after you pass the revitalizing the black hole. And we are currently certainly revitalizing the black hole that is super intelligence, deep horizon. But the reason for Neuralink, well, that's basically very helpful. People have very responsive needs, disabilities itself, like enabling people who are typically, or like the Stephen Hawking, to communicate actually even faster than I can communicate the body. So, and ultimately to improve the bandwidth between your protons and your the AI version of yourself. In fact, I think a lot of apps don't quite realize that they're already established. So you've got your limbic system, which is drives your cortex, your thinking and planning, and then you have the third area, which is your computers, your devices, your phones, laptops, all the servers that are used for applications. And in fact, I think probably a lot of people have found that if you leave your cell phone
Take it away.
if you forget yeah, if you forget your cell phone, it's like missing limb syndrome. You know, you like where you go. You're losing your cell phone, it's like missing limb syndrome. So because of this, your cell phone is an extension of yourself. The limitation is bandwidth. So the rate at which you can input or I should say output information into your phone or computer is very slow. So the phone is really just the speed of your thumb movements, and best case scenario, you're a speech typist on a keyboard, but even that data rate is very slow. We're talking about tens, maybe hundreds of bits per second, whereas you're doing billions of bits per second. And this is admittedly somewhat of a Hail Mary shot or whatever. Is that if you can improve the bandwidth between your cortex and your digital tertiary cell, then you can achieve better cohesion between what humans want and what AI does. At least that's one theory. I'm not saying this is a sure thing. It's just one potential iron in the fire. And if ultimately, hundreds of millions of people get a high bandwidth interface to their digital tertiary self, their AI self effectively, then that seems like that probably leads to a better future for humanity. So I'm getting somewhat esoteric, but hopefully some of this is making sense. And like I said, it's a long shot. But what I find interesting is that I've not found any human who wishes to delete either their cortex or their limbic system. I suspect nobody in this room wants to do that. So we'll
Or their cell phone.
Sorry?
Or their cell phone.
Well, no, I've met people who don't use a cell phone. It's rare. Okay.
Well, I confess, for years I avoided this, and I avoided it. I didn't even have. Not only did I not have a cell phone within my immediate radius, I didn't have a television set. My phones were 35-year-old phones because I was Prime Minister of Israel, and I knew what this means. Okay, I mean, maybe your audience doesn't know, but you. Now, having spent some time in the opposition, I lapsed into the use of the cell phone, and I find it very hard to dissociate from it for the reasons that you said. It's become an extension of, a repository of memory, the ability to get information very fast, which you say correctly is very slow, very slow, but compared to what it was before. Remember you had research assistants, have to go to libraries, things like that. Where's that? That's gone. But this will be seen as very vastly primitive compared to what you're talking about, Elon.
Yeah, I'll start saying that. It's sort of a funny thing. Like, if you assume like a best case AI scenario, imagine if you're the AI and you're trying to, you just want the human to tell you what it wants. just please spit it out, but it's speaking so slowly, like a tree. Okay. Like trees communicate. Okay. If you watch a tree like a sped up version of a tree growing, it's actually communicating. It's communicating with the soil. It's trying to find the sunlight. It's reacting to other trees and that kind of thing very slowly. Which is what a tree sounds very close. So what I'm saying is, we don't want to be a tree. That's the idea behind having that with the neural interface is just even when the AI desperately wants to do good things for us, so that we can actually communicate several orders of magnitude faster than we currently can.
I love that you mentioned the trees there, because anyone is still struggling to understand why it's so likely to...
¿Qué? So likely to what, papi? ¿Qué? What the fuck? The fucking likely to what? Likely to what? Ay, este vato, ¿qué?
What I'm saying is, we don't want to be afraid. That's the idea behind a high bandwidth neural interface. Is just even when the AI system lets do good things for us, that we can actually communicate several orders of magnitude faster than we currently can. So.
I love that you mentioned the trees there, because if anyone is still struggling to understand why it's so likely that we could get wiped out by AI, you know, to a super intelligent AI, we are like trees. They are as much faster than us in their thinking than we are to trees. So if some trees in the rainforest are a little bit worried that some humans are going to come chop them down, you know, they're like, oh, don't worry, we're so smart, we'll stop those humans. So good luck with that, right? I love how you went philosophical here and talked about what it means to be human, and I wanted to follow up on that. And
but before that, maybe just continue that. Okay, so how you're assuming that the danger of human extinction is that you have machines, super intelligent machines that outpace humans by orders and orders of magnitude, who will not necessarily value the continued human existence as we know it, and basically program us out. That's basically what you're saying.
So if we were to be so dumb as to create entities that are much more powerful than us that don't share our goals, yeah, that's a really bad idea. I mean, in Israel, I think you understand really, really well that if you have a bunch of other beings who are intelligent and don't share your values, you know, it can go really badly, right? And let's not make that mistake by giving too much power to machines don't share our values. But of course, we can tackle that in various ways. So coming back to what can we concretely do, I just want to say one thing about the philosophical point about being human. Just for myself, one of the things that I really cherish the most about being human is the agency. That I can actually make choices and make a difference. And one of the most beautiful things about what you are doing with technology is giving us more agency. Back in the Middle Ages, we had a life expectancy of freaking 30 years, and knowing that we might starve to death next year because of the weather, you know, what kind of... It's so much more inspiring now that we're becoming more of the captain ship with technology, able to actually have more agency as a species. So I say let's use that agency to create a wonderful future, not throw away. And three things I want to just suggest concrete action items we can do here. I'll say a little more about each of them. One has to do with pausing risky stuff, one has to do with controlling the machines, and one has to do with inspiration for the future. So for the controlling, we already talked quite a lot about the importance of staying in control of these machines, so I don't need to dwell on it anymore. I think it's saying things like, oh, what is going to happen to us? Bring out the popcorn. That's too passive for me. Let's celebrate our agency and ask ourselves not what we think will happen, but what we want to happen. And clearly, we want to control these machines. We're building them. Second thing, so I, agree with Greg on many things, and I greatly respect your work. One thing where we have a friendly disagreement is, I signed this pause letter saying I think we should pause the riskiest things, and you don't. I think that it would be a good strategy for us to emulate what biotech does and just have clear safety standards. If you want to release a new drug, you can't just sell it in the supermarket. You have to do a clinical trial to persuade some experts somehow that this is safe. And I would like to see high stakes, very powerful systems, some sort of system like this with standards, and then the companies have them. It's on them to prove that they're safe before they get released.
Who does the standard? Who makes the standard?
Well, and we've solved this. It's been solved in Israel. It's been solved in the U.S. for biotech.
I mean, not for biotech, but here. Do you want it regulators or do you want it legislatures? I mean, it's not the only choice, but it's a pretty clear dichotomy.
I don't think we need to reinvent this wheel. The people who decide whether a drug gets approved in Israel is not people in parliament in the Knesset, right? It's Israeli scientists.
Right.
But the government is involved in approving them. Exactly. We can emulate that, and Elon can tell us all about how we deal with cars. I don't want to dwell on it. I just think this is not rocket science. We can put these standards in place, and then we can continue doing all sorts of wonderful stuff with AI tech. Some stuff we'll wait a little longer for, but it'll be worth the wait because it'll be safe. The last thing I just wanted to say is I think for us to really seize this agency and work together, not just between companies, but also across borders, we really need a shared positive vision. And this is something I really appreciate so much about you, Elon. You have the guts more than most to talk about really audacious, positive visions for the future. What is it that makes people collaborate and put little squabbles aside? It's always a shared positive vision where people realize that if we collaborate, we'll all be better off. Technology is not a zero-sum game. You can take countries like Sweden and Denmark that have been killing each other for centuries and flat GDP, and then technology came along and they both got dramatically better off. It's so obvious that the technology that you're building, can make all humans just spectacularly better off with AI, and not just on this planet. I like the list before we started that you had there about how it can revolutionize healthcare and so many other things. And I would add to that, why limit ourselves to this planet when there's this beautiful universe where life can flourish for billions of years? The more we can just appreciate how huge the upside is, if we do this right, the more incentive we will have to actually be a little patient where we need to be a little bit patient, make everything safe, and therefore get this wonderful future.
Well, maybe we're sort of lagging behind in our social and political development. This is like that in nuclear technology in the Stone Age. What do you do with it? Is more or less the thing that I talked about in terms of the pace of development. Outpacing what solutions we need to put in place to maximize the benefits and limits the risks. I think we're there. I think we should have I presume you were talking about this. You don't have to divulge what you can't divulge, but divulge what you can.
Well, there were a lot of people in the meeting, so I don't think it was secret. There was just a discussion on AI regulation, and actually Sam Altman from OpenAI was there, and a number of AI leaders were there. I think generally it would be a good idea to have some kind of AI regulatory agency, and you start off with a team that gathers insight to get maximum understanding, and you have some proposed rulemaking, and then eventually you have regulations that are put in place. And this is something we have for everything that is potential danger to the public. So if it is, with Food and Drugs, with Food and Drug Administration, we've got aircraft with the FAA and space and rockets. There's every anything that is a danger to the public over time. We have learned, as often the hard way, after many people have died, to have a regulatory agency to protect public safety. I'm not someone who thinks that regulation is some panacea where it's only good. Of course, there are some downsides to regulation in that things move a bit slower, and sometimes you get regulatory capture and that kind of thing. But on balance, I think the public would not want to get rid of most regulatory agencies. And you can think of it also as like the regulatory agency being like a referee. What sports game doesn't have a referee? You need someone to make sure that that people are playing fairly, not breaking the rules, and that's why basically every sport has a referee of one kind or another. So that's the rationale for AI safety, and I've been pushing this all around the world. When I was in China a few months ago, meeting with some of the senior leadership, my primary topic was AI safety and regulation, and they after we had a long discussion, agreed that there's merit to AI regulation, and immediately took action in this regard. So. So sometimes we'll get this comment of like, well, if the West does AI regulation, surely then what if China doesn't and then leaps ahead? And I think they also take it very seriously. Because, you know,
Alguien de un abrazo. Aquí hoy vas bien. Se acaban las grandes. Una hora para el resto. En unos. ¿Qué más? ¿Qué? No es por el original. Entonces voy a decir. Pendejo.
El testigo les otorga este poder a los desdeñados. Destrúyelo. Evita que se vuelvan más poderosos. Pero ten en cuenta esto. Solo es una muestra de lo que vendrá.
Otra superarma de la pirámide neutralizada.
Protegiste al mundo trono de la destrucción de nuevo. Excelente trabajo.